Hi, you're welcome to my channel. My name is Helen. So today I'm gonna be demonstrating how to create a Dockerfile and use the Dockerfile to build your custom Docker image, which you can actually use to spin up your container. Please, if you're yet to subscribe to this channel, kindly subscribe and click on notification bell. That way you get notifications each time I publish a new video. I actually have a lot to share with you guys on cloud engineering, everything DevOps, okay? So you don't want to miss out. Dockerfile is just a test file that contains some set of instructions that Docker uses to build a container image. In the Dockerfile, you will specify the base image to use and any additional software packages to install and any other configuration settings to apply. Okay, so in your Dockerfile, you have to list some set of instructions which will actually enable you to build your image, your Docker image. So Dockerfile starts with an instruction. It starts with from instruction actually. So that from instruction specifies the base image to use. So whenever you're starting to build your Dockerfile, you need to have a base image to use. Okay, so the base image is just like the foundation. Okay, let me put it that way. It's just like the foundation. Is the starting point for building your new image. So it can be any image depending on the application you want to build. So it depends on your requirements and the application you want to build the image. All right, so you can get your base image on Docker Hub or any other image repository. All right, so I'm gonna show you some common Dockerfile instructions and their meaning or the explanation of each of the instructions. First of all, like I said, Dockerfile starts with from instructions. So this is the first instruction we're going to be talking about. And what does this do? This specifies the base image that the Dockerfile will use to build the new image. So it is usually an existing image from a registry like Docker Hub or any other registry that your organization might be using. Okay, so let's see the second instruction. Run. This run instruction actually executes a command inside the Docker container while it is being built. This command will be executed while your image is being built, and it will install some dependencies and set up the environment. And the third one is copy command. This copy command copies a file from the host machine into the container. This is used to add application code, configuration files, or other other assets needed by the container. So when you use copy command, it is basically to copy the file you have in your host machine into your container. Let's see the fourth one, work dir. Okay, so this is to set the working environment for any subsequent command in your Dockerfile. It is useful for organizing files and running command in a specific directory. So if you want to set a working directory in your container, you have to put this in your Dockerfile when building it. Okay, so let's say I want to set a directory called project inside my container. I'll have to use work dir instruction for that. Fifth instruction is expose instruction. What does this do? This actually informs Docker that the container you're trying to run will listing on a particular port. Okay, so this is actually to use it to like expose your application on a particular port. The sixth one is cmd. What does this command do? It specifies the default command that should be executed when the container starts. So this can be overridden by the user when the container is running. Okay, so use cmd to execute a command inside your container when the container has actually started. Okay, so that is cmd. Let's see the next one, and this is entry point. Entry point is actually similar to cmd, but this also allows for additional argument to be passed in when the container starts. We'll be making use of most of this command when I'm going to be demonstrating this in the terminal. The next one is env. Env is used for setting environment variables in your container. Okay, so inside your container basically, so you use to pass configuration values into your container. We have volume as the next instruction. What is volume instruction? This volume kind of creates a mount point for a directory inside your container and marks it as a volume. So it will allow you to share, your directory with the host or with other containers, right? So that is volume. And the last but not the least instruction we're going to be discussing is maintainer. Maintainer specifies the name and email address of the person or team responsible for maintaining the image. Okay, so today I'm gonna be demonstrating how to create a Dockerfile using these 4 steps. First of all, we'll identify the base image we're gonna use. Okay, so after identifying the base image, depending on what we actually want to build, depending on our application and the requirement, right? The next thing is to create a file and then add the Dockerfile instructions we want to use, and then we'll build our Docker image. Lastly, we'll use the image to create our container. I already have Docker installed, all right. In my Windows, I have Docker installed, so you can actually go ahead and make use of a Linux machine. Just ensure that you install whatever computer you're using, ensure that Docker is installed. Okay, so I have a Docker desktop I'm using. So if you're using AWS, the EC2 instance or virtual machine from Azure, whatever terminal that has Docker installed is good to use. If you don't have Docker installed already, you can go ahead and install Docker. So first thing I want to do here is to create a directory for what I want to demonstrate. Okay, so using mkdir, I would like to create a folder and call it class demo. Press enter and I will go into this directory. Great. So in this directory, the first thing actually is to identify the base image we're gonna use for this Docker, for our Docker file. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Docker Hub. How did I get here? I simply type Docker Hub, and this is Docker Hub here. This is a Docker Hub, and Docker Hub is just a hosted repository service provided by Docker for finding and sharing container images with your team. So whatever image you want to use in your Docker file, all you need to do is to type it here. For instance, if you're building a Python application, I want to get a Python based image, just type Python here and you will see, okay, you can see Docker official image for Python is here. Okay, so but the one I would like to use here is Ubuntu. So I'll type Ubuntu here, press enter. This is Ubuntu official image. I'll click on it. So here you can go ahead and see the supported tags and respective Dockerfile links. Okay, so you can see we have different tags. If I decide to go with this one, I can actually go ahead and use this in the from instruction. So be using 22.04, and so let me go back to my terminal. So having identified that I'll be using Ubuntu as my base image, the second thing I need to do here is to create a file. I'll create a file called Dockerfile. So I'm gonna use touch command. Okay, and I'll press enter. When you're creating yours, ensure that this D is in capital letter. Okay, so the next file I'm gonna be creating here is a file that will have the code, all right, or the application. So if you have your application already, you can actually go ahead and clone it here, but I don't have anything. As you can see in my folder, I only have this Docker file for building an image. There is no application, so I want to create an index.html file that will have my application or what I actually want to containerize. Okay, so index.html file, sorry, let me use touch command, index.html, and that is fine. So if I run ls, I have Dockerfile and index.html file. Having created the Dockerfile, let's go ahead now and create the Docker file, like add some set of instructions that will help us to build our image. So I'll use vi Docker file to go into my vi test editor, and I'll press I to be in insert mode. So the first instruction here is from instruction. You will need to use a base image for building your Docker image. All right, to build your custom Docker image, you need a base image, and we use from instruction for that. So I've identified the image, the image I want to use, which is Ubuntu, and the tag is 22.04. So when you don't choose a tag, it will make use of latest tag for you. So I want to be specific here by using the image and the tag, which is 22.04. So after from instruction, the next command I want to use is run command. Remember what run command is used for. So run command here, okay, let me type the instruction first. First of all, I want to run app get update, so it can update the package manager. And after the update, I want to run apt-get install nginx. So I want to be using nginx server for this. All right, so apt-get install nginx-y, and that is it. So you use run command to install or update your package manager, and then install the softwares you want to use. Okay, so it will update the package list in our Ubuntu image and then install the nginx web server for us. Now let's see the next command. I would like to set my working directory. So workdir. So I want to set my working directory to var/www slash html. Okay, so what would this command do? To actually set the working directory in our container to this. Okay, so this is not the working directory of your host, it's actually the working directory in your container, and that will be /var/www/html. all right, so that is for this working directory. Let's see the next command. So I would like to have a copy command to copy the index.html file which I've created. It is actually in the current directory of our Docker file. So this index.html file, I want to copy it over to the container. Actually, I will add a content to this because now it is still empty, but once I am done with these instructions, I will add a content before we start building our image. So I want to use copy command to copy index.html file to the directory in our container. So once you type this file, give a space and type dots. So this dot is to so basically this one is from the host to the container. So this is how you run it. Okay, from the host to the container. I think something is wrong here. HTML. All right, so copy index.html file I have in my current directory to the container. So ensure there is a space between the HTML and the dots here. All right, so after this copy command, I would like to have a cmd command, and I will give space, open brackets, and I'm gonna open double quotes and type nginx because we're using nginx web server, right? So nginx, and I'll close this, and I won't give any space. I'll type comma, and then semicolon, and then I'm gonna enclose this and close the bracket. So what will this cmd command do? So this command will set the default command to run when a container is started from the image. So now we are starting the Nginx web server in the foreground with the daemon off option to keep the container running. Okay, if you're creating your, if you run a container without giving it a process to run, it will exit. So we want the process that will be running in our container to be, we want it to start the Nginx, because remember we are installing Nginx here. Okay, so in the container we want it to start the Nginx web server, so it will be on a running state. So this is actually the command to achieve that. It will run that in the foreground with the daemon or the daemon of option. And the next command I would like to have here is expose command. Expose command is used to inform Docker that your container will be listening on a specific port. So if I type expose 80, it means I want my container to be exposed or to listen on port 80 at runtime. Go ahead and save it. I'll press escape key, colon, and WQ exclamation mark, press enter. This is good. So the next thing I want to run here now is to build the Docker image. That is actually the third step, right? To build a Docker image with this Docker file we've created. So what is the command to build a Docker image? It is simply to type docker build -t. So this -t is used to tag the image. So I want to tag my image some Docker image. Okay, and then I'll give space, just one space, and type dot, because the Docker file I want to use for building, okay, sorry, I've actually not added anything inside the index.html file, so I need to add something to it, right? Vi index.html file. So I'll just type whatever I want to be displayed on the web page. So I'll type or let me say Dockerfile tutorial. All is going perfectly well. All right, so this is all I need, and I'll go ahead and save it. Okay, so now we can build our Docker image. Docker build -t, and then I'm gonna name this Docker, or let me use my image, and then I'm just gonna give one space and type dots. Okay, so it will tag my image with this name, and then this dot is to tell Docker that okay, I have a Docker file which you will use to build this image for me, and it is in this current working directory. So in case you're building your image and you have your Docker file somewhere else, if it's not in your current directory, then you need to specify the path. But because I'm in the current directory where my Docker file is, that's why I'm using dot. So this is all I need to do. I'll press enter. So let's see how this goes. I think we have an error here. Okay, sorry, I actually made a mistake here. I should have added and here in between. Sorry, so let me correct that. All right, so this should be, because these are two separate commands, so it shouldn't be in one line. Sorry about that. So please correct that in your own Docker file. And again, you can actually, in case you want to use more than one run instruction, you can go ahead and make use of it. So you can, with this command, you can actually type run command and then run this command in the next line, but you can choose to run it in the same line by using this and in between. Okay, so let me save this. And I'll run this command again. I'll run docker build command. Okay. Okay. All right. So after updating and installing the Nginx web server, you can see 3/4. So it executed the work dir and set the working directory. And once done, it copied the index.html file into the container part or container directory, post the application to port 80. So our image is actually built right now. Let me confirm that. So first of all, let me clear this. So I'll run docker images, and you can see my image is here, and you can see created 48 seconds ago. So from this image we can actually run our docker container. So to run our docker container, I'll type docker run -p to map the port. So I want to map the port from the host to the container. So I'll map it to port 80, which we've exposed. Okay, so this is for the host and this is for the container. So I'm telling Docker to map port 80 with the ports on the container, and then I want to do -d because I want this to run in a detached mode. Then --name to give the name to my container. So I can name it demo container, and then the name of the image is this. So the name of my image. All right, so this is actually the command we need to run the container. I'll press enter, and the container has been created. To confirm that, docker ps command, can see my container is running. So how do I access this application? I'll go ahead and make use of localhost to access it. There's this localhost 80, press enter. Great, Dockerfile tutorial, all is going perfectly well. Okay, so this is the web page. In case you're using an EC2 instance or a virtual machine, just all you need to do is to open port 80, ensure that the traffic on port 80 is open, and also ensure that you make use of the public IP address to access it. So because I'm using a Docker desktop, right, on my local machine. That is why I'm using this local host. All right, so this is actually how to build a Dockerfile. I believe I was able to demonstrate how you can create your custom Docker image using a Dockerfile, and then use that to create your container. Please, if there's any stage in this process that you don't understand, please comment on the comment section. All right, I'll be right there to answer your questions. I'm gonna be sharing this Docker reference file. So in the Docker reference file, you can actually see other Docker instructions. So I was able to show you the commonly used Docker instructions, so you can see more for yourself here. I'm gonna be dropping the link on the description below so you can go through it. All right, so please, before you go, kindly subscribe to this channel and click on the notification bell to get updates each time I drop a new video. Okay, you actually have a lot to gain. Thank you and bye bye.